You are listening to Unequaled with JC Carroll and Ajay Salveson. But first, our friends, the Painted Roses.
Hi, welcome to another edition of the Unequaled podcast. Really excited for this episode and our guest. I can't wait to get going here. JC Carroll, I'm Ajay Salveson, episode number 6 here on the Unequaled podcast. Make sure you hit subscribe, favorite, and we appreciate all the support we've gotten through the last 5 episodes. Luke's took off a lot, like everywhere.
Yeah, Luke was fun, man. That guy was inspiring, a wrestler. Those guys are tough, and he was fun. It's just, as much as we've been doing this, it's been fun just talking to people that have done great things, been very inspirational, and they're right here in our backyard.
It's amazing. And we're going to go from one great high school athlete to another. I can't wait for that one. But first, hey, by the way, congrats on a great season in your first year from Mountain Crest. I know you kind of scoff at it, but like in year one, you guys make the tournament, you beat Orem, and then you played a great game against Skyview, fell just short, but it was fun to watch you coach last night and see you kind of get into it. Got a little bit of fire in you. It's nice to see that.
Oh, there's fire there. It was fun. It was a good experience. I'm super happy with my girls. They did everything I asked. They worked really hard this year. The Mount Crest girls did things they haven't done in a decade. And so it was a great starting point. And we look forward to what the next few years will bring.
Well, future's bright with you with Coach, man. Congrats. That's an awesome season.
Thank you.
Really
Thank
happy
you.
for you.
Very kind.
All right, let's get to it. Ryan Bohm, one of the greatest athletes. In fact, before there was Mason Faltzlev, there was Ryan Bohm. And if you're smart enough, and if you've not been hanging underneath the rock for the last 20 years, you know who Ryan Bohm is. One of the greatest football players to come out of the Cache Valley. Played at Logan High underneath the great Mike Favero, who obviously has solidified a status of his own. Ryan Bohm is one of the best, like I said, come out of Cache Valley, and you're one of the best ever to come out of Logan High, and that's saying something considering some of the athletes that came out of there in any sport. And he joins us here on Unequaled. Ryan, thank you so much for your time. It's great to have you.
Man, really appreciate it. Super kind words. Not sure if all of it's true, but, we'll take it.
Oh, it is. And I'm saying that coming from a guy who was a water boy and watched this guy dominate us. Like for 3 years, whatever it was, just kick our butts. Ryan, I was talking to Dawn, and Dawn and I have had this conversation ad nauseum, and I don't know if you feel the same or not, because you and I are coaching high school basketball, but back in the day, like when we would have Mountain Crest versus Skyview, or Mountain Crest versus Logan, or Skyview and Logan, whatever it was, people showed up. It was standing room only for these games. And I remember I saw a photo on social media about an upcoming game. I think it was Mountain Crest and Skyview, and it was near tip-off time, and maybe half the stands were full, half. And I kind of just wondered if the rivalries have watered down from back. Now they take instead when they go to homecoming, the last could grow from a rival school. That's imposterous. But I just feel like those rivalry schools, those rivalries have watered down so much, and I don't know if they mean as much as they did back when we were going against each other.
Yeah, I think there's a couple things, couple factors. One, with social media and everything going on today, I think kids just have a lot of other stuff going on that, back in the day, it was like, what else would you do on a Friday night than go to a game? So I think that's one thing. But really, I think one of the bigger factors is, I hated everybody from Mountain Crest.
Oh, yeah, I hated you. I couldn't stand you.
It wasn't like we wouldn't hang out on the weekends. It was like I did not like these guys. I didn't want to be on their team. Nowadays, these kids that play all these club sports and stuff, they're all friends. They're texting each other. They're hanging out after the game. They're giving each other love during the it's like you don't even know which team, these are your buddies.
What are you doing?
So the angst, the hatred, the rivalry, whatever you want to call it, I just don't think that exists like it used to. And maybe that's a good thing. But in terms of, a Friday night getting in a fight against Mountain Crest, I just don't see that happening anymore with these kids. And so I think that just is the nature of sports now, and it's a new generation, and it's probably for the better, but it's certainly not as exciting and fun, on a Friday night.
Yeah, even start from the top up. If you look at the way even NBA guys are nowadays, they go to these prep schools as buddies. They're on AU teams as buddies, and it's different. You hear the old timers say things like, "Oh, I would never want to play for the Lakers. I want to beat them. I would have never joined up and had super teams." So we have a little bit of that. But to have you both feel okay being involved in this girl stuff. Believe me, there's still some rivalry there.
Is there?
Oh, yeah. There's still some feeling of we want to go get these girls. But it is true what you say, Ryan, about the friends. Like our Mountain Crest girls, they're very good friends with a lot of the Skyview girls who played last night because they played on the same AU team. And so they know them. They're hugging them after the games. But to be honest, it makes one of my girls want to beat them more. She likes to beat up on her friends. She's a different breed, though. But Ryan, when you were there, who got the best of those rivalries, Logan or Mountain Crest back in the day?
Geez, don't.
Oh, so Mountain Crest had won region, I think, 4 years in a row. So from like 98 or 97 to
96
to 99 or whatever the numbers were, right? And
Would that have been like Zimmerman's? Were they there?
We were just getting into it.
yeah, not quite there.
Okay.
And then we beat Mountain Crest 3 times in a row. So in 2000, we beat them twice in the region championship, in the semis, and then we won the state championship. And then we beat them in region my senior year in 2001. We ended up sharing the region championship with them and Box Elder. And then they beat us in the semifinals up at Utah State, and they won the state championship.
By the way, so he comes. So in 2000, like you said, region championship on the line, and Ryan just throttles us. Like it was 1-11, and no one could stop Ryan. And it was so annoying. We go to the semifinal in 2000 at Romney. At the time, it was Romney Stadium. And it's snowing that day, and our kicker, who had just kicked a game-winning field goal against Lone Peak, number 1 team, beats them at Lone Peak. So we come to, Romney Stadium, and it's a decent crowd. Well, he shanks a PAT on the opening drive after we score. So it's 7-6. No big deal. Like, we're going to get back in field goal range again. Well, staff kind of overthought it on our side. And, we're inside the red zone maybe 4 times. Don't kick a field goal once. Go for it. And we get stuffed. Ryan Bohm, at the time, he's playing running back. And he's just killing us, like gain of 5, gain of 4, gain of 5, it was like playing Air Force in football. Couldn't do anything about it. And so we was that game 7-6, JC.
Holy cow.
7-6. I was cold, I was hungry, and Ryan Bohm was kicking our trash, and so I was just livid. I didn't want to be there anymore. And so I hated Ryan. And then the next year, before I get into that, talk about the transition, because you went from being an all-state running back to being an all-state quarterback in his senior year, from junior to senior, went from running back to quarterback. Can you talk about that transition?
Yeah. I had always been a quarterback from Little League all the way up. And so going into, my junior year, Jared Lowe, we had a good quarterback. So it was kind of like, and I actually started the season only playing linebacker. The first 4 games, I only played linebacker. And then our offense, we were winning games, but it was like 14-7 and stuff. We had a great defense, but our offense wasn't very good. And so Favero's like, well, why don't you play both ways? So I moved to tailback. That really changed kind of the trajectory of everything. And then, went through that season, obviously won a state championship. I was the MVP, 4A MVP. Going into my senior year, it was like, well, what are we going to do? Because I wanted to play quarterback, but Favero's like, why would I change anything? Like, you should just reproduce what you did last year. Now remember, this is 2000, 2001. This is pre-spread offense. Mm-hmm. This is I-backs, wing T, triple option, like still old school. It's still old. There's like a fullback, like a real fullback. And, part of the genius of Favero, he kind of saw what my skill set was, and he said, well, if I put him at quarterback and put him in the shotgun and still treat him like a running back, we're just going to have numbers. And so it wasn't even really like a true spread. It was like I was back there running quarterback blast. I just had an extra blocker, and we could spread the field. And then, fortunately, we had 4 good receivers. And so it was like if they packed the box, I'd just throw for 300 yards. If they spread out, I'd rush for 200+ yards. And
I like I said, I'll just pass for 300 yards. I'll just rush for 200.
I know.
It was just like,
Yeah, frustrating this is to listen to.
Yeah. I was like, yeah, I'll just.
It's
do
like
that.
you're someone like, hey, we're gonna double you, and you're like, all right, I'll just, I'll have 40 assists. All right, we're not gonna double. No, I'll have 40 points. That's what plenty is Jason.
This is just a numbers game. It's just a numbers game because in high school you're not going to have 4 guys that can cover receivers. It's just you can't recruit. So we could just take advantage of it. And again, because it wasn't today where everybody's used to spread offense, they know how to defend it. People still had formations that we could just take advantage from a numbers perspective. And if I've got a head of steam and I'm 5 yards downfield and I'm one-on-one with safety, like those are pretty good odds. And so we put up some stupid numbers my senior year. We broke all the from scrimmage records, yardage, touchdowns responsible, all that stuff. And it was a ton of fun. The problem was our defense wasn't very good. So we totally flipped. The year before, our defense was amazing, and our offense wasn't very good. And then, my senior year, our offense was lights out. Our defense wasn't very good. But it was a ton of fun. Obviously, those Mountain Crest games stick out in my mind as, supreme rivalry, Zimmerman, Caressa, Carson, like just some spectacular teams. And, our region, Box Elder was the other team in the semifinal. So, Region 4 at the time, 3 of the final 4 teams were all from the same region. And, we were the Hicks, the Cowboys, up in Cache Valley. We couldn't play with these Salt Lake teams, but we played Viewmont my senior year. We smoked them. We played Lone Peak. We beat those boys up. Like, it was fun going down and, playing the big schools. And
I remember our homecoming night, I don't know why, we're stupid. We scheduled Ryan Bohm for homecoming night on a region game. And the whole week we were game planning around Ryan Bohm, like how are we going to stop Ryan Bohm? There was nobody else we cared about, not one player. How are we going to stop Ryan Bohm? Kind of like how teams had a game plan for you, JC. And so we go into that night, we're like, all right, we're confident. We're like, we're going to be all right. We even watched this stupid highlight film on Logan the night before the game. And it was all about Ryan Bohm. And George Zimmerman, our defensive coordinator, is all pumped up. He's like, yeah, we're going to shut him down. We're all fired up. Ryan has 295 yards, 3 touchdowns, no picks, and we lose like 35-14. I mean, just carved us. And so we ended up making our way through. We share the region title, get to the semifinal. We blew out our 2 opponents, Tim Few and Murray. You guys took care of business on your end. We go to semifinal, so again, second year in a row. Face Ryan Bohm, and this time I'm like, we're going to get killed. I'm the equipment manager. I'm already planning for it. We're going to get murdered. Ryan's going to have like 900 yards. And so I remember the year before it was snowing. This day, it's clear.
it was perfect.
Beautiful weather. Romney Stadium, probably, I think it was the second biggest crowd for a game in high school in the Valley ever.
There was like 8,000 people.
It was packed. It was more than the Utah State football game would get at the time. That's not a joke. They get like 5,000. We had 8,000. It was jam-packed.
Yeah, it was amazing.
Ryan was Ryan. He counts for 355 yards this time, 4 touchdowns, and a kicker who wasn't reliable for us ends up booting one through the mercy of God, taking a field goal for us for once. And we ended up beating them like, what was it, 38? 38-35 was the final score at a Classic. Just unbelievable football. And on that field, there was like 9 all-state kids, first team. 9. It was just unreal, the talent there. But, and I look at that just as you were getting ready to go play at the next level in football, like how did that set you up during those competitive games against great athletes back in that day? How did that set you up?
I'm probably too competitive. I think I've heard that multiple times in my life. I hate losing more than I like to win. Let me just put it out there. So the fear of losing, the fear of getting beat, that motivated me. I wasn't necessarily the best athlete. I wasn't the fastest guy. I couldn't jump higher than everybody, but I think I wanted it more than anybody else I knew. And so a lot of times, it was like I was just going to run through a tackle, and it didn't matter who you were or how good you were, whatever. Like I just wanted it more than you did, and so that was really kind of what drove me. And the idea of playing at the next level was always a dream. Frankly, it was honestly a disappointment to me once I got to the next level, especially because the state of Utah State football at the time was not good. We didn't have money. We didn't have facilities. We had good players, but it was a time of flux, and there was a lot of times when it seemed like guys didn't care. and the culture just wasn't very good. And so for me, it was really hard because I remember Utah came in 2006, and I think that's the year they went undefeated, and they beat us like 55-0 at home, and it was an absolute drubbing, and I was devastated. And 10 minutes after the game's over, I couldn't tell if we had won or lost in the locker room. No. Right? Because guys are just, hey, I'll meet you at the liquor store or whatever. You know, like that was what they wanted to talk about. And the culture was just so bad at the time that, like, for a guy like me, that was miserable because I'm like, am I the only guy that cares around here? So that was honestly hard for me. And it's part of kind of, you know, I loved my experience playing collegiate ball, but that part of it in particular is kind of something that is a bit of a regret for me.
Hi, this is Karen Nielsen with Guild Mortgage in Logan, Utah. Beyond great rates, we're committed to ongoing customer service even after your loan closes. We want you to experience knowledge, communication, and amazing customer service for a lasting relationship. Make Guild Mortgage your trusted partner.
JC, can I ask you, like, because the culture, if we're going to be blunt, was completely opposite for you at Utah State basketball.
Oh, yeah.
If you guys lost the game by 20, no one's saying a word on the bus, no one's saying a word on the plane, no one's smiling. Like, that kind of culture for you guys is probably what made you guys so great is we're going to win if we don't, unacceptable.
Oh, yeah. I came into a completely different situation. I came into a situation where their Coach Morrill had his way of doing things, and he was strict. I mean, he eased up on the later crews, but for us, it was you're clean shaven, you have a tight haircut. We've had players that came in with like different kind of cornrows and dreads, and they're like, hey, you should probably cut that. And they did. Like, everyone fell in line, and they did it because Coach Morrill did have success. They were having success, and he just didn't put up with it. He didn't care. Like, he didn't put up with it. And I think it's easier to build a culture when you have to worry about 15 guys as opposed to 100. I think it's hard to get 100 guys or at least a group of 25 that can overpower the other 75 guys in a football locker room. With basketball, you get 7 guys on board, like, you win the locker room, you win the battle. And Coach Morrill did a very good job of getting high-character guys that came in. There's a real nice line of just, you know, a Tony Brown leads into Spencer Nelson, leads into like a Nate Harris, that leads into J.C. Carroll, then it comes into Gary Wilkinson and a Ty West. And this was this chain of high-quality guys that understood the culture, understood what it was, and everyone just fell in line. And football didn't have that.
Was stuff like the facilities. I remember we talked about this before, but there's stories about like coaches when they would bring recruits in for football, the facilities were not shown. They would avoid the facilities, look at the field, but not go anywhere else in the facilities because they just didn't want to embarrass them. I know your guys' facilities were maybe better, but not by much. You guys didn't really have a lot to show off either. What was the recruiting process like that in that regard? I mean, you guys were winning, but I mean, the facilities part wasn't as great as you were probably hoping for.
No, for us, we got the big Jumbotron. I think that was before I got there. And so we'd sit there and we just would watch the Spectrum, like highlights of the Spectrum with the fans. Like, that was enough. That's all you needed. And then you'd go down the winning record, and they'd say, there's 4 teams in the last 10 years that have won 75% of their games or 79% of their games. And it's Duke, Utah State, and Gonzaga. Like, that's the list. You're like, what are the guys? And I remember it was like a tongue-in-cheek conversation. Did Utah go to this tournament last year? No, Coach, they did. Oh, they didn't? Was BYU at the tournament last year? No, Coach, they wasn't. Oh, did you know that? Talking to the recruit. It just was a dumb conversation like that because winning solves a lot of things. Winning fixes a lot of things. But you have to create a culture to be able to win.
Did you get any other offers besides Utah State?
I had offers to the Ivies. It's hard for those guys to get, players that can get into the school. And so most of the Ivies I could have gone to, but they've got an early committal process that they like. So your Harvard, your Yale, they want you to commit before your senior year because they also have, at least back then, they had like these great, like these levels. They only let so many kids in that get a 28 on their ACT. They only let so many kids get in that get a 31 on their ACT. They have to, these stupid football players that can only get a 31 on their ACT. So all those schools wanted me to commit before my senior year, which I wasn't willing to do. I really wanted to go to Stanford, honestly, and I was still really in the mix for Stanford at the time. Ty Whittingham, I believe, was the coach, and then he ended up going to Notre Dame that year. And so then Stanford came off the table, but Dartmouth was in the mix all the way to the end. It really came down to Dartmouth and Utah State at the end of the day for me. I was a small city kid from Logan, like LDS kid, going to go on a mission, and so going to a big city, going back east, like I went on the recruiting visits. It was fun. But the idea of like being in Nowhereville, Hanover, New Hampshire, going to Dartmouth just didn't seem right. So, Utah State had offered me after my junior year, so I knew that was on the table. And I'd always been an Aggie, always loved, I grew up here. It was home. And so it ultimately felt right. But to your, recruiting conversation, you know what we did? We took them to the Spectrum to a basketball game. That's what we did. No, because what else were we going to do, right? Like, a couple funny stories. Running back core, we met in the first aid room of the stadium, and I sat on a cot, like a first aid cot, looking at a Zenith TV that was older than I was to watch film. I mean, that's what we at, right? I showed up. Okay, I show up like December 24th. I report for my first day. I just got off a mission. I come back. I walk in. Bear's in there. He gives me my locker. I'm a scholarship guy. I walk up to the counter. He gives me some shorts, gives me a T-shirt, and he gives me a pair of shoes with somebody else's number on it. And I'm like, and I look at him and I kind of turn him around. I'm like, these are worn. And he's like, do you want shoes or not? I was like, sweet, I'll take them. So my first pair of shoes, somebody else had worn them before me. They weren't like super worn, but they definitely are worn. So like that was the state of the program. Like we got 3 pairs of gloves for the season, period. So I had one that I wore in practice. I had one that was my game pair, and then I had one pair in case one of those other 2 went out.
Well, that makes me sad. I don't know what else to say. Like I'm like sitting here. I got a little depressed for a second. Oh man, that's too bad. He's wearing someone else's shoes that got sent back. But the comment you made about the recruiting trip was the basketball. Makes sense because I did get a chance to speak with Bobby Wagner, Robert Turbin, and they said it was kind of what made you come here. They said we went to a basketball game and we got to see that atmosphere. And that was it. That was like one of the deciding things. But man, they didn't tell me about wearing other people's shoes and stuff. I don't know what would have happened.
By the time they came around,
it was a little
Nike
different.
was in the play, right? And
yeah,
and we were trending up, and we had new facilities, and we, so when I talk about that was a dark time in the program, that's what I mean. Is like, and the problem with that was, at the end of the day, I don't care about the shoes. I don't care. But the problem was we felt like second-class citizens. And so there was plenty of games where we were in the game in the third and fourth quarter. It was a touchdown game. And everyone was looking around like, are we supposed to be in this game? Like, who's going to make a play? Because we were so embarrassed about the locker room that the other team had to go into because it was a joke, right? And so it was like we didn't even feel like we were supposed to. Like we were Division II, right? And until the facilities came and until the money started coming, until the coaching quality came up, like until that happened and Coach A, you had a culture change. And all of a sudden guys are like, well, we deserve to be here. Like our facilities are just as nice as these other guys. Wow, we got other teams showing up going, wow, this is legit. This is nice stuff. We don't have this at our school. Like once that starts to happen, once you can fly into Logan, you can charter out of Logan, you feel like this is legit, Division I football. And now when you get in the fourth quarter and you need to make a play, like we deserve to be here. And so, I mean, I can't say it's just the money, but there's a direct correlation between when the money started to come in and the facilities came and all of a sudden we started winning program. And it's like, now with the facilities, we win 6 games, we're disappointed.
Yeah.
We never won 6 games when I was there, not even close, right? We would have jumped for joy to make a bowl game. But now we're in a different world and kind of a lot of the excuses are gone, right? NIL is a whole different conversation. That's a money discussion, but we're at a place in the program where we expect to win now, and so we do. It's interesting.
You being a local guy, I have the same question for you as well. Was there pressure on you coming out of Logan High, being that local guy? Everyone, I remember, the newspaper articles coming out about Ryan Bohm going to be at Utah State, staying home. Was there pressure on you immediately to succeed when you came back from mission to get going and to have success on the field?
I don't know. Maybe. I mean, I didn't.
Did you feel it at all or no?
I'm my biggest critic.
Yeah.
So whether or not there was a lot of pressure, out in the community, no one's going to put more pressure on me than me. And so I had huge, expectations for myself. And, I came in and I actually came in spring ball, I played receiver. And then I'm not a receiver. And so at the end of spring ball, I went to Coach Santiago, who was our OC at the time. And I said, hey, I should play running back. And he's like, okay, we'll move you, but you're going to be at the bottom of the depth chart. And I was like, okay. So going into fall camp, I think I was 5th on the depth chart. And then every week, I just moved up one spot and one spot and one spot. And then we were supposed to play, our first game was supposed to be at
Nicholls State, wasn't it?
Yeah, Nicholls State. And then Hurricane Katrina happened. Yeah. So that game just got canceled. We never played it.
Game.
And so the next week we played at Utah, and I started as a true freshman. And so for me, I just have this ridiculous standard that I hold myself to, and I just worked hard and luckily, got to the point where I could get out and play. And so, I don't think there was any more pressure than anybody else per se, because I just wanted to play and I just wanted to be out there. And so whether or not people were talking or something, I mean, certainly, at the time, a lot of people in the community knew who I was, and random people would talk to me in a movie theater and like, hey man, I saw the game. But that stuff was all fun. So I didn't feel more pressure because of it.
Former Skyview quarterback and Utah State football walk-on, Ted Stokes has established the #1 bankruptcy law firm in the state of Utah. Stokes Law's playbook is helping individuals and businesses overcome tough financial situations. If you're facing garnishment, repossession, foreclosure, or just overwhelming debt, give Stokes Law a call at 435-213-4771 or visit their website, stokesbankruptcy.com. Stokes Law is a debt relief agency and provides guidance under the United States Bankruptcy Code.
Well, after year one, you have this incredible freshman. I still remember going to a game, I think it was against Utah home your freshman year, and it's packed house. No offense for football. Jammed house. I'm singing the concourse because there's no seats available, and they're chanting your name. I don't remember that. It's Jay, and it was loud. Year two, was there more pressure on you to come out and be successful because of the expectation after a very good freshman year? And how hard was it after year one to be better your second year, because they all knew who J.C. Carroll was?
Yeah, there was definitely more pressure, more expectations. I don't know if pressure was the right, but more expectations of doing something. My first year, there were no expectations on me. I was some random kid from Evanston, Wyoming. I just got back off a mission. There's no expectation of me to do anything besides maybe be a redshirt kid. So anything I did was like, oh man, he overachieved. My second year, there was expectations, expectations to be better, expectations to repeat what you did the year before. But for me, the most pressure I felt was going into my senior year. And this is why. Because they started looking at the all-time scoring record and saw that I was getting close to it. So all my questions, all my interviews were, what day do you think you'll break the record? How close do you think you are? I was like 250 points away still. And in my mind, I'm going, I still have to score 250 points to even have a chance to break it. Like, I could break an ankle. I could not make a shot. And so I really felt some of that. Once we started playing, all those things kind of went away. But, yeah, going to my senior year, it's like the countdown was on. And people didn't understand. I mean, if you have one game where you go 0, all of a sudden you got to, if you're averaging 20 points a game, you got to score 40 the next game to keep that average. Like, it's just a weird numbers game that I was playing in my head, but worked out. That's the most pressure I felt. But it was fun. Question I had, talking about high school stuff, did you play other sports?
Like basketball.
Play basketball?
He was good, too. And go figure.
Do you think it's important for kids today to play multiple sports?
100%. I think it's a travesty of club sports right now. I'm experiencing it right now. I have 3 sons. My 2 older sons are really into lacrosse.
Yep.
And it's a 9 months out of the year kind of sport. And it's travel, and it's back east, and it's intense. And fortunately for our family, the only time the lacrosse takes off is football. So I'm good with that, right? So we fit football in. But my second son in particular, he's a really good basketball player, and he really likes it. And he's in 7th grade, and we're probably going to have a discussion next year about, do you want to play lacrosse or do you want to play basketball? Because you can't do it both.
Yeah.
And so, unfortunately, in the reality we live in today, maybe you can play 2 sports, but if you're really good, you probably have to play 1. And so I think it's anti-science. Like, you look at any of the greatest athletes in any sport of all time, you take the top 50, and they all played everything, right? And there's just certain things you learn playing basketball that you don't learn in football, and you learn playing baseball, and you run track, and there's different muscles. I mean, nobody back in the day was getting Tommy John surgery when they're 18 years old from overuse.
Yeah.
Okay? My son, who's 13, has been on crutches for 5 weeks because of an avulsion fracture in his hip, which is an overuse injury, because he never stops, right? There's times when he's finishing football, basketball's already practicing. The day we win the mini ball this last year, he goes straight to a basketball game, and then he's got a lacrosse tournament that weekend, right? And it's like, we used to finish football, and we had a month till basketball started.
Yeah.
And then basketball was like 3 months, and then baseball was a month later, right? Yep. And then we had a whole summer with nothing, right? We had a summer games 1 weekend tournament at SUU. That was travel ball back in the day, right? That was Super League back in the day.
Yep.
And then the rest of the summer, you were a kid, and you relaxed, and you played video games, and you did whatever your body could repair. So I guess my point is, absolutely, I think that we're hurting kids by pigeonholing them too early. And club sports at kids, young kids, is becoming a really profitable business for a lot of people.
I think you said a lot right there.
And so you put those two things together, and I think you're hurting, you're asking 12-year-old kids to choose the sport they want to play for the rest of their life.
Can you expand on that, just the club sports being profitable, and what your mindset is on that, JC?
No, what he says right. There's tons and tons of studies that talk about how multi-sport athletes create better athletes, whatever sport you want to be in. I mean, it's been proven over and over, as Ryan said. And I think you get into some of that because you do get coaches that are very driven by that being their livelihood, and they get paid more by the more kids they have involved and the longer period of time that they have them. So they're ultra motivated because of their own bottom line to push sports year long, and they start saying things to parents like, well, if they're not at this tournament, they're going to miss – these coaches are they're not going to see you. This is a good – coaches there, and they start when they're young. The 7th and 8th graders like, oh, this is a big – there's college recruiters there at 7th and 8th grade. The truth is, no one's watching a 7th and 8th grade kid going, we're going to give to him. No one cares. They have until their 10th or 11th grade to make those decisions. And so I think they get into parents' ears like, if they're not there, they're going to get missed. This opportunity is going to get missed. And it ultimately goes to their bottom line. There's good AU coaches that are in it to help the kids. Don't get me wrong. But I do agree with Ryan that kids get pigeonholed a lot earlier than they should.
How do you guys balance that as dads, like with your kids, to say, hey, look, we want you to participate in other sports and have those experiences, but we don't want you to be getting hammered both ways by a coach for not going to a tournament or not going to a game because you're going to do this other thing, and allow them to still be kids, to have a social life as well. How do you guys do that as dads?
Man, it's hard. I mean, I'm right in the middle of it right now, and I certainly wouldn't claim to have figured it out by any means. I think my wife and I have a really open dialogue with the kids in terms of what the commitment is that they're making and that our family's making, right? Like this travel lacrosse stuff, like it's an absurd amount of money. We go back east 5 times a year. Now, granted, like my second son, he plays on this team called West Coast Stars out of San Diego. I mean, they're the number 2 lacrosse team in the country, right? This is like legit the highest level, right? But because of it, he can't really play on his local AAU basketball team. And so we just talk about like, look, if you want to play on this team, this is the sacrifice you're going to have to make, right? Like you're going to play half the basketball season and that's it. And so I think communication's part of it, but I'm really frank with coaches. And like my third son, who's a really good soccer player, he his coach was starting to kind of do some of these shenanigans. And, if you don't, if you play football this next year, then we're not going to put you on the A team. You're going to be on the B team, yada, yada. And so we just were like, no, we're not going to do it. He's going to play football. And so part of it is not playing the game. I think part of it is understanding the game and then just letting the kids decide. At the end of the day, obviously I'm a football guy. If my kids told me tomorrow they didn't want to play football, I would be sad, right? Because I love the game and I want to see them play it. But as long as they're doing something they love, I'm good with it. So I've had to come to the realization that whatever they want to do, like I'm going to support them and I want them to go hard. But it's too hard to try and map it all out. It's too hard to try and control it because there are so many of these, kind of extenuating circumstances that like they're going to have to make some choices that I wish they didn't. So I just hope they have really good information and don't feel pressured by me like, oh, Dad's going to be disappointed if I don't do this. It's like, look, I'm going to love you whatever you do. I just want you to, go hard at it.
Hey, you looking for something fun to do this summer? How about you go to Bridgeland Adventure Park, located in Garden City, Utah. Bridgeland Adventure Park has all sorts of adventures from ages 2 to 92. A 4-levels ropes course with 73 events, a giant swing, a 450-foot-long zip line, or get on a tube and head down the 350-foot slide. They're also accepting business corporate groups. You and your office want to get out of the daily grind? Sick of staring at your computer for 8 hours a day? Well, bring the company over to Bridgeland Adventure Park. Enjoy some delicious food, a snow cone, a fun time with your coworkers, and lasting memories. Bridgeland Adventure Park is located at 722 South First Light Drive in Garden City, Utah. For more information and questions, go to blap.rocks. That's BLAP.rocks.
That's good. And so I'm not any better. I've got a daughter that's part of she just got out with the Lady Prospects. It's the premier, AU basketball team in the state of Utah. They're going to travel on charter planes to everywhere this summer. Like, it's unbelievably cool. Like, if I was there, yeah. But what makes it worse? I'm her high school coach, and I know in my heart of hearts that she needs to play like lacrosse is spring sport. Like, we want her to do lacrosse, regular sports. But me being her dad, I know that. But then I'm her coach. I'm like, we finished last night. It was our last game. I'm already telling her, hey, what are we doing for basketball today? What shots are we shooting today? She's like, Dad, I just got done. I was like, oh, yeah, okay. But it's like I want her to be so good at it. And then I look at her AAU schedule this spring. I go, Bella, how do we play lacrosse? And we go to all this stuff. And so I think we have an open dialogue and we talk about it. And you let them kind of, as parents, you can see what they're a little bit better at. I mean, you can. You can see what they have a talent for. You can help steer them to those things, but ultimately, giving some guidance from you as a parent and listening to them. Hey, I like basketball, Dad. I like football. I like soccer. Great. Go support them in that. But try not to get pigeonholed too early. My daughter is 15. She's kind of at that age where it's like, okay, she can decide this is the path she wants to go on, but my 6-year-old, he's in everything. We'll play soccer, we'll play football, we'll play basketball, we'll play baseball, whatever it is. Like, just be active.
We're live here at Boat & Co. Real Estate. Larry Bradley will take care of your real estate business. 1835 Main Street in Logan. Have a chance to talk with Larry. And by the way, they're wonderful receptionists as well. And they have really good mints, too. Beautiful building, beautiful place. J.C. Carroll, myself, Ryan Bohm, one of the greatest athletes to come out of Cache Valley, joining us here on Unequaled. Also brought to you by Ruby's Pizzeria and Grill at 795 1400 North. Great menu of items, Thursday through Saturday, 9 p.m. to midnight. Special delectable items. I went and had it was this gourmet hot dog wrapped up in a pretzel bun, and I'm supposed to be good on my diet, and I wrecked it that night, and it was so worth it. Go to Ruby's Pizzeria and Grill, Thad Willis, and they'll take good care of you. Tell them that the Unequal Podcast sent you. We talked before we got on this, and I want to hit you guys really hard on this. Don Webb and I do a side business, and we help support student female athletes in NIL opportunities to give them a chance. We talked with one of those female athletes one time, and we said, hey, what is your expenditure like? Like, if we were to support you, what do you need the most? And she told us that she has $20 to spend on groceries for 2 weeks. And that just wrecked me and Dawn. We sat there and were just flabbergasted hearing these stories from female athletes about how they don't have enough money to get on groceries or gas. Now the Blue Eight Collective came through. Eric Lobb, Gary Anderson. What they've done is absolutely phenomenal, and they're able to help use that to keep athletes here. When you guys, I want to hear from both of you your stories. I want to hear an honest opinion too. When you hear NIL and the incredible athletes you guys were, when you hear NIL and you hear what NIL is doing, both bad and good, keeping athletes or chasing athletes away for one reason or another. What are your guys' thought process on that? Because I feel like, for a female student athlete, unless your name is Olivia Dunn or Caitlin Clark, you're not going to see a whole lot of money. But guys like, I'll just say it, Ike Larson or Great Ossibor, you hear those names and they're making, they're going to make a pretty good amount of money. What has the NIL effect had on college athletics? Can it be fixed or does it need to be fixed? And what is your guys' solution if needed to be?
Go ahead, Ryan. You take that one.
I guess before I answer that question, let's talk a little bit about my experience. At the time, I lived off campus. The monthly stipend was, I think, $625 or $650. Mm-hmm. So $650 had to pay for my housing, a car, phone, food, entertainment, everything.
Is that per month?
Per month. So $650. Okay. Now, granted, this was 2004 or 5, whatever, so it's a little cheaper than it is today, but we're still talking about not even close, right? Fortunately, I was able to, have some on-campus jobs, and my wife was working, and I decided some other means, right? But most of the guys, they show up on campus, the very next day they go in the financial aid office and take out as much student loan as they possibly can. Very next day. Because, we're not talking about driving Rolls Royce. We're talking about having a phone, right? And so I absolutely 100% believe that college athletics and athletes in particular should get some more money. Now, transition to NIL. I think NIL, in principle, is fine. Like, you should get paid for the value that you bring. The way it's administered, it's the wild, wild west, and I think it's destroying the beauty of college athletics from my perspective. So I don't, propose to say that I know how to fix it, but I think you're getting a bunch of young kids a bunch of money way before they're ready for it. I think you're creating a lot of unintended consequences around even a bigger separation between the haves and the have-nots in, Power 5, mid-majors, etc. I think you're hurting the recruiting process. If I'm in Alabama, I never recruit another high school athlete, ever. Right. Why would you take the risk when you can just write a check and get a proven junior who already is big and fast and strong and is, the defensive MVP of the Mountain West? Why would you recruit a kid out of high school? So it hurts the recruiting process. There's so many factors in there. I think there was a lot of shenanigans going on forever, right? Reggie Bush, if I'm Reggie Bush, I am pissed.
Yeah.
Right now. Like, give me my Heisman back.
Yeah.
Right? And was he worth every penny of it? Yeah. He's the most dynamic college football player I've ever seen in my life, right?
Right.
He went outside the rules. There's consequences, right? Now he would have got $10 million a year, okay? So, I don't know what the solution is. I'd be happy to be on some panel and talk to guys. Like, I would be happy to come up with a solution because I don't want to see it destroy one of the most beautiful things that I've ever seen, which is a Saturday night college football atmosphere. I think it's going to ruin it. But I don't know. It's the reality, right? This is what we live in. The NCAA just lost another lawsuit today, or there was an injunction by a judge that said they can't, impose some issues on NIL. So I don't know how you put this rabbit back in the hat, but there needs to be some governance around it. There needs to be some rules, or this will just be professional athletics 2.0. And, if you're Cam Rising, why would you try and go to the NFL? He's not going to go to the NFL. If at best he's a third-string journeyman for his entire career, I like him. He's a gamer, whatever. He's getting paid $1.5 million or whatever. He's just to play his 17th year of college football at Utah. He didn't even touch the field last year. He made $1.5 million or whatever. That's ludicrous, right? Like, man, I'm gonna blow my knee out just for fun, so I can come back next year and make another $1 million.
Yeah.
Like, So that's the kind of stuff where I think there's a problem, right? And I don't know how to fix it, but it is the reality that we're in today.
Yeah, you're definitely passionate about it. There are some issues there, and back to our college experience a little bit. I think our stipend was exactly the same. I remember that $600 and something. But what made it worse was even during the summer, where I always had to have a summer job, I couldn't have a summer job in basketball. In other words, I couldn't put on camps and teach kids something that I knew how to do really well and get paid for it. That was an NCAA violation. And so that made it really frustrating. So my summer jobs were, I worked in a physical therapy place at the hospital. Grateful for them for giving me a job. I worked at a sports academy one summer. After my freshman year, I worked in the oil fields in Wyoming. I went back home. I worked 4 10-hour shifts during my summer between my freshman and my sophomore year while I was in college. The car picked me up at 4:30 in the morning and drove me up the mountain an hour to the oil and natural gas fields. I spent 10 hours up there. Then I came home. Then I did it again. And with all that, I still had to lift weights, shoot baskets, stay in shape. It was hard. Now, where we're at now, I'm with Ryan. I don't know the exact solution. It creates a huge separation between haves and have-nots, even inside the same locker room. Cam Rising at $1.5 million or whatever he's getting, you got his buddy sitting next to him making 10 or 20 grand. It just creates this dichotomy in the locker room that's not favorable either. Now, solutions, I don't have them. Maybe it's salary cap stuff. Maybe it's minimums for per teams, per conferences. I don't know what it is, but it's definitely going to come to a breaking point a little bit when a real solution has to be found.
You're looking for the best place to grab yourself a pizza and, of course, entertainment? Look no further than Ruby's Pizzeria and Grill at 795 East, 1400 North. Ruby's Pizzeria and Grill has your salads, delicious pastas, creative pizzas, all that including watching some good games on TV with your buddies. Ruby's Pizzeria and Grill also has a Thursday through Saturday, 9 p.m. to midnight menu. That's right, 9 p.m. to midnight, Thursday through Saturday, you get the delectable items. Our producer, Adam Lurcher, and myself went there, while Adam had the chicken fingers. I had this beautifully made gourmet hot dog with a delicious pretzel bun wrapped around it. Most importantly, Ruby's Pizzeria and Grill has the best customer service. Their employees are there to take good care of you, led by their manager, Thad Willis. So stop by Ruby's Pizzeria and Grill and let them know that the Unequaled podcast sent you there. 795 East, 1400 North in Logan.
I think, when I put on social media, that Mason Falslev, if he stays, could be considered one of the great Aggies.
Uh-huh.
He could be up in the echelon of J.C. Carroll, Sam Merrill, Greg Grant, Wayne Estes, that kind of group. And I had a slew of comments from people after that said, well, what do you mean if he stays? Like, of course he's going to stay. It's his home. It's his backyard. And I said, oh, I'm sorry. Do we not remember Stephen Ashworth? Everyone thought Stephen was going to be a forever Aggie, one of the greatest. Now he's at Creighton, playing for a top 20 basketball team, making well over $200,000 and getting all these benefits because he was offered more of an opportunity to be successful and, well, not to be successful, I guess, but to be personally taken care of.
Yeah, I feel bad for like a Mason Falslev that he is going to have to make that decision. That's not an easy decision for a 21-year-old kid. It is his hometown. He's loved here. He could be an all-time great Aggie. And it's just the nature of it. Someone's going to come knocking this year and going to offer him a nice chunk of change, going to offer some good money. And he has to make a decision, or we have to, as Utah State people, have to try and find a way to match that offer to keep him here.
How do we match that? I mean, I know, like, we talk about donorship, right? I mean, we have some great donors, and I said this Blake Collective with Gary and Eric has been wonderful. But even at that, you'll see coaches get opportunities elsewhere as well, right? I mean, and they'll get great offers. How do we, like you guys said, there's not really a big solution for it. But isn't it fair for an athlete to get those offers because the coach does as well and they can leave after 1 year?
Yeah, we opened that box, man. It was hard before. You'd be recruited and you'd go there because of a coach. A coach did an interview the other day, said I used to have to spend 4 or 5 years trying to recruit a kid to get him to come here, to get him to trust me. And it creates a sense of trust, and then the coach goes, I had a good year, I'm out. he just broke that trust with that player, and it wasn't fair that the player was stuck or the player would leave and he'd have to sit out a year. So some of those things had to be fixed, and we've just kind of maybe overcorrected for the time being, and we got to get back to where we have to get back to where there's some kind of equilibrium in it.
Yeah. And, I don't have any issue with a kid, going somewhere else and taking their talents to South Beach. Like, and they got to make grown-up decisions, and they need to do what's best for their family. I mean, I wish they would stay, and I wish we're never going to be able to match the big money. We just don't. We don't have it, and we won't have it consistently. So we're never going to be able to give them top dollar, right? But I hope we can give them enough, and that the culture and the environment and everything else makes up for the rest, right? And you can talk cost of living, and you can talk all this stuff. Like there's an argument to be made to stay, and there's certain things that you can't put a value on, right? Which is being a hometown hero and those type of things. So yeah, I would love to see Mason be here for a long time. But if he decides to go, I don't blame him, right? If Sprinkle's here next year, great. If he's not, is what it is, right? Next man up. So part of it for me, and I think the pill that I've swallowed just being an Aggie, right, is like, look, we're always going to be a stepping stone, okay? But we can be a really good one. Like, I think we should be the best stepping stone that there is in, the mid-majors, right?
And you're okay with that?
I'm okay with it because what's the alternative, right? Unless somebody hits the $1 billion lottery and decides to give half of it to the program, it'll never change because we just cannot compete with that money, right? We're not in the Power 5. Maybe, I'm praying every day we in the Pac-12, whatever. But we're not in the Power 5. We don't have that kind of advertising money. We have a great fan base, but in terms of donor base, in terms of the amount of money that we raise, like it's nothing compared to some of these schools. And just across the board, right? Like if it takes $1 million, $2 million, however many millions of NIL to have a competing basketball team, I mean, I just don't know how much money we can raise every single year consistently, like in Alabama or in Ohio State or whoever, when they just have infinite amount of money. So I would rather just say, look, we're never going to be them, so let's just be the best, mid-major that we can possibly be. And as long as we compete in that space, I think that's about as good as we can hope for, again, unless somebody comes in and says, hey, I've got $50 million I want to give to the athletic program to fund this thing into, the next century.
Yeah. This is something I talk about with a lot of my teammates that we came back and we made our homes Cache Valley because a lot of us aren't natives to here, but you are. When you were here going to college, how much time did you spend in the community doing things? I mean, how many speaking engagements did you do? How many youth visits did you do? Were you heavily involved in that type of stuff?
Yeah. So at the time, Amy Crosby.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. She was associate A.B.
Yeah, up there in Q actually, yeah.
Before she went to Weber and then she came back. Anyway, so Amy, I think I was like her go-to guy back in that day. So like every time with like, whether it was like some little kids program or whether it was special needs something or whether it was, whatever, it was like, hey, Ryan, can you come to this and will you round up a few of your teammates to come and do this? So absolutely loved doing those things, getting out in the community. And I think one of my proudest moments, honestly, of Utah State was, so I had my concussions in 2006, so I only played really a year and a half. So 2007 season, I get season tickets. I'm not on the team anymore. I go walk in the stadium. I sit down. I'm watching the game, and this kid comes walking down from my right down the stadium, and he's got a jersey on, and it had my name on it. And I was like, yes. Like, that was probably my proudest moment as an Aggie of like, okay. And I could remember, I'm trying to think like, okay, how do you get that jersey? And then I remember some event that I went to or we handed out a jersey and I signed a jersey or something or whatever. And then this kid shows up in my jersey the next game. And I'm like, okay, that's really what it's all about.
Yeah. And to that point, I've had, a couple experiences since I've been here the last, even just this past couple months where I've had people come up to me and say, hey, I enjoy you. I'm glad you're around. And they didn't say, and I go, well, where do we meet? And they didn't talk about basketball games. They talked about, well, you came and spoke at my house. You spoke at this campfire fireside out here. And so that was meaningful to me that some of those people knew of me because of something besides basketball. But to that point as well, like I sent time with Gary Wilkinson's, and we didn't get NIL money, but we were out in the community, and he's made the comment many times that working in Cache Valley, spending time outside, that goodwill and that community service stuff that we did has come back 100-fold in our post-career lives, our post-basketball lives. I've seen it with me, the opportunities I've had to network with people that knew me outside of basketball because of basketball. Have you had the same experience?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. 100%. And so, yeah, there's some intangibles, right, about living in this place. This is a special place.
Mm-hmm.
And people can feel it. And, people from Evanston, Wyoming come over here and play basketball, and then they want to live in Cache Valley, right? So, I think that's the magic of this place. And if we can get competitive enough and we can have enough money that those type of people who come here and it resonates and they feel a kinship here, they're going to stay. And the other ones that don't, that's fine too, right? Yeah. Thanks, whoever, help us win some games and, whatever, see you later. That's okay. But for me, my objective is we need to make it good enough that those guys stay. Because those are the people that we want to be in our community long-term anyway, right? And so, yeah, we're never going to keep everybody, but if we can keep the majority of guys, I was super impressed. I was really dumbfounded that basically we kept the entire football team. I mean, blew my mind, right? Devin Dye left, but I literally lost one guy that was a legit playmaker. That blew my mind, right? And I think a lot of it has to do with the coaching staff, Coach A, collective, the whole nine. That gave me a lot of hope for, wow, if we can do that, that's all I'm asking for, right? Is high quality dudes that help us win games, and we're going to get better, and we keep the majority of them. Man, if we could do that every year, I would be tickled.
So post Utah State career, obviously you've been honored. You had your number hanging in the rafters of the Spectrum, which is really, really cool to see.
Yeah.
Ryan, do you feel like the football, and I'm trying to be careful how I ask this, but do you feel like they've been good enough to reach out to the alumni to bring them and invite them back as a part of the history of Utah State football, the coaching staff, administration? Do you feel like they could be doing more for you in that regard?
Yeah. I mean, it's hard that, we haven't had a coach for more than 4 years at any time.
Yeah.
And so it's whatever culture they're building within their program every 3-4 years goes away, right? And so there's been several times, since my career where they've kind of made a little push and tried to get guys to come back. There just hasn't been any consistency there. And so I haven't seen anybody, whether it's on, the administrative staff side or the coaches, that just has kept really any kind of consistency with that. And then again, unfortunately, we had a 20-year period where it was pretty dark. And I don't know how many of those guys have a ton of pride, right? And then they just haven't got any love for a long time. And so I would love to see more of a brotherhood, something more consistent. I mean, there's been efforts, right? And so I can't say that there hasn't been people trying. I just don't feel like it's been super consistent. And so I would love to, get to know a lot of these other Aggies and stuff. They've got a golf tournament every once in a while and stuff, so I've met some people. But, yeah, I can't say that, there's this really tight brotherhood of football players for the last 3 decades that get together every year, and it just hasn't been, unfortunately.
Because you guys get together pretty often, don't you? Or at least a group of you?
Yeah, we've been lucky. Like I said, a bunch of us decided to make Cache Valley our home. So we do have that brotherhood of, hey, let's get together, and we'll go months without talking, but then we get together, it's great. But the other thing that the Utah State has done good for us, and in the last few years, is they've honored our teams that it's the 15-year reunion since we won a WAC title, and they've invited us all back, and we do an event. And then they had my jersey retirement, which we invited a bunch of people back, and then we named the court after Coach Morrill, which was just 2 weeks ago, and that was unbelievably cool because we did have players from his 17 years.
Amazing.
And, yeah, I never played with Brennan Ray, but I feel like he's my best friend. He's my big brother. He sees me. He wants to hug me. He wants to come hang out. And it's awesome. Darrell Peterson, I haven't seen him in 15 years since we graduated. and he comes in and it was like he never left. So basketball, we are a smaller group than football. Maybe receiver group, maybe running back group has that type of feeling. Maybe the lines have that type of feeling, but we're 15 guys, and we're maybe 5 or 6 guys that are 4-year guys together. So we do have a tight group of people that we've had cool opportunities to get together. And every time we do, we have the same comment. We have to do this more often. Why don't we do this more often?
Well, before we close it up, I want to play Give Me Rapid Fire with Ryan. This is fun. All right, we'll shoot back and forth here. Best player you ever played against in college, or college.
College, Darren McFadden.
Ooh, Arkansas.
Jeez, he's pretty good.
Hey, where did he end up at? Oakland in the NFL? Where did he go?
Raiders.
Man,
Guy was a freak. Fastest man in pads that I've ever seen. No question. Yeah.
All right, best date night in Cache Valley with your wife.
Ooh.
Tandoori oven.
Okay.
Yeah, we're gonna hit tandoori, or we're gonna hit some sushi, at Takara. That's where I'm at.
Okay. Best game of your high school career.
Probably region championship against Mountain Crest, because that was kind of that was what changed the trajectory of Logan High football. Was that game?
Favorite, like, one moment, one play of any level.
Ooh.
One that sticks out to you, like, oh my gosh.
The interception I had in Romney Stadium against Mountain Crest in the semifinals to send us to the state championship.
Dumb throw, too, Ryan. Ryan, if you're listening to this, stupid throw. Dumb throw.
Great play. What are you talking about? Give this guy all the credit. Not that
guy. Best high school opponent you played against? One that gave you the most fear?
Yeah. So I can't think of his name right now. He was the running back at Olympus. We played Olympus 4 times. We played him in the preseason of my junior year. We lost to him. And then we beat him in the semifinal or the quarterfinals and the playoffs. And then my senior year, we played him in the preseason, and then we played him in the quarterfinals again and beat him. He was a freaking stud, and ended up, playing at Utah. And I can't think of his name right now, but he was a stud.
Your favorite place you were at in Brazil?
Favorite place? I went back and did a study abroad when I was at Utah State in Rio, and I mean, Rio is just spectacular.
I think I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you this, because we need to ask you, Mike Favero. What did he mean to you in your career?
Wow, that's a long story. That's not a rapid fire. That's all right. I was fortunate enough. He became the head coach between my freshman and sophomore year. He completely changed the trajectory of my career, because prior to him, I wouldn't have played until I was a senior. I mean, that was just the way it was. You didn't play varsity unless you were a senior, right? So I'm playing varsity as a sophomore, and then, everything else is history. Favero, he was a genius, is a genius, just a student of the game. In high school football, you have to adjust to your players because you can't recruit.
Yep.
So if he needed to throw the ball 70 times a game with Luke Falk, he threw the ball 70 times a game. If he needed to take a running back and turn him into a quarterback and run the ball from the shotgun, he did it, right? He'd get his athletes in space. And so I was just lucky enough to, be the very experiment of, him. And he and I joke now, he's like, man, I wish I could have coached you 10 years later, right? Because he's like, wow, we could have had so much more fun. But obviously, his record speaks for itself. 5 state championships, 8, 9 region championships, like, just incredible. But he's a great human, and then as a football coach, he knows his stuff, he does it right, and I'll always be grateful for that, man.
Hardest hit you ever took?
Probably San Jose State. A pitch from Leon Jackson III, a little bit high. We're running speed option left, and he kind of hung me out to dry. And my claim to fame is I didn't fumble, but it did make ESPN top 10 for such a big hit, and the whole stadium just went right when I got nailed. So
it's San Jose.
It was San Jose.
Oh man, that's even worse. Well, Ryan, this has been fun. thank you so much for joining us. And you're one of the best I ever saw on the field in high school. If not top 3, one of the best, no question.
Really appreciate it, man.
It's cool to see you on the field, man. And it was great to see you. It's great to see you now. Looks like you're doing great. Everything going well, though? Life? What are you doing now, by the way? Update us.
Yeah, man. Got a wealth management practice here in Logan. Got 4 kids, beautiful wife. Coaching sports.
You're going to be at Skyview? Is that what I was told?
Yeah.
Speaking of being a trader.
I know, man. It's crazy, with the Bobcats now. But, we got a new head football coach out there, Eric Alder. It's exciting. And he asked me to help coach on the offense. So I'll be doing some work with the quarterbacks and running backs out there. And so that'll be a new experience for me. I'll keep doing the Little League stuff. And it's just, I need 28 hours a day, and there's only 24, and you're supposed to sleep, so just keeping my head above the water.
Well, that's great, man. Again, thank you so much for joining us. It's been awesome.
Super fun.
For Ryan Bohm, the great J.C. Carroll, IU Hall of Famer, and Ozzie Salvesen, you've been listening to the Unequaled podcast.
Oh, I think I might have made one too many mistakes.